Since Victorian times, coastal sea defences have traditionally been robust concrete or stone features designed to resist rather than diffuse wave energy, and for the most part they've served this country well. But that, unfortunately, is starting to change. Not only up here in Lancashire, but at an increasing number of locations around the UK, a good example of which is the Eyesore at Markham, supposedly constructed after consultation with all potential stakeholders, yet wiping out at a stroke any potential of high water fishing for which the town was justifiably renowned, plus all prospects for disabled angler participation.
What's happened at Markham's happened and nothing's ever going to change that. Shore anglers there were ridden roughshod over. But now history looks like it's going to repeat itself on the south side of Markham Bay at Rossall.
Shore angling has always been important up here in the northwest, with the north end of the Fylde coast coming in for particular attention, especially at high water during the autumn and winter months.
So important that Wyre Borough Council even peg-marked the wall for competitions.
But not important enough, it seems, to see high water angling access given any sort of weighting, when, following Markham's example just across the bay, Wyre Borough Council decided they too would sign up for coastal boulder cladding, destroying one of the country's foremost high water fisheries at the stroke of a pen.
Protecting properties from flooding is of vital importance. Nobody can deny that.
But as nearby Cleveland's has already very clearly demonstrated, by using steps instead of boulders in conjunction with a wall fitted with sealed storm doors, it is possible to diffuse wave energy aesthetically and without loss of access. Cleveland's, by the way, also comes within the jurisdiction of Wyre Borough Council. The idea behind using boulders is that their irregular shape and the voids this creates supposedly takes all the energy out of incoming waves through energy diffusion. But so too can more aesthetically pleasing angler-friendly options.
Of course, protecting property should take precedence over leisure time pursuits, but it's not impossible to achieve both ends at the same time.
Before Balfour Beatty cordoned off the beach, preventing even mid-tide fishing access, I made a point of getting down there and recording these few video clips of what things were like before the heavy machinery moved in. Later, meetings between anglers and Wyre Borough Council were paid lip service to, including ideas to at least provide some angling access. But every time I went near the project to check on progress and to record some historical video, unfortunately I was moved on. At a meeting between anglers' representatives and Wyre Borough Council in Poulton in May 2013, which I audio recorded, a formal request was made for steps, similar to those installed at Cleveley's. This was refused out of hand on the grounds of cost and maintenance, though importantly, not with regard to its sea defence properties. A wide range of other alternative ideas were brought up for debate, including short banks of access steps at intervals which anglers could fish from, long shallow-angled emergency vehicle access slades, and concrete-topped boulder groins. Another stumbling block was the decision to use limestone instead of granite. Cost, again, was the primary driver here. The chief biologist from the Inshore Fisheries Conservation Authority, of which I was also a sitting representative, put forward a very strong case to keep the limestone out of seawater contact due to the link between limestone and seed mussel mortality, as this part of Lancashire is one of the most important seed mussel areas in the entire country. And not unexpectedly, another rejected argument. Then, to make matters worse, we later found out that some granite was eventually brought in. But the engineers refused to ensure that this was used at the base of the cladding to minimise limestone and seawater contact, instead insisting it would be used wherever it ended up according to where it arrived on any particular day. So sensitive and secretive did things ultimately become that in early 2016 I was threatened with the police if I so much as went near the perimeter barriers to film. Left with no other course open, I complained to Wyre Borough Council, who insisted it had all been for safety reasons and invited me to attend an on-site meeting in April 2016 where a progress report would be given, recorded extracts of which are used here as voiceover to go with the progress footage I was able to film before being threatened with arrest, plus a few short clips I was able to grab on site on the day. And to my astonishment, I also found that above the boulder cladding they were actually installing the very same banks of precast steps rejected earlier on the grounds of cost. The reason for this is anybody's guess. With boulders between the steps and the sand, you have to ask who was ever going to use them and for what reason.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm John Fenn, I'm the sub-agent on the scheme. This is Kath Pye, she's the Wyre Borough Council supervisor. Okay, so Rossall Coastal Defence Scheme. It's a £64 million coastal defence scheme. The scheme itself will protect 7,500 homes in the lieu of the wall, obviously in this area. The team that puts it together in terms of the customers team are called the Fylde Peninsula Coastal Programme. It's a group of bodies, being Wyre Borough Council, Fylde Council, Blackpool Council and the Environments Agency, which were put together various parts of those organisations to deliver a number of schemes on this coastline to add value and save money basically, so that they all share the learning.
Between each authority we've got people who've got years of experience of delivering all the capital programmes that we've done at Blackpool and Cleveley's, and so it made sense for us all to sort of pool that experience and work together on these three jobs, because as I said there's going to be another one at Fylde as well. So that was like the rationale behind that.
Contract awarded to Balfours in October 2013. We started delivering the primary armour stone in March 2014 after some SI works were carried out here to inform on the design. We then started placing the rock armour, I'll touch on the difference between the two in a minute, in October 2014, and we have been rolling ever since basically. The important one, I'm guessing for you guys, is completion is 2017 November. We're well on target for that, if not ahead of programme at the minute, but I'll touch wood and say I'll be careful on that one. But yeah, at this point in time the sun is shining and everything's going reasonably well. It's designed for a 1 in 200 year storm event. I always have to put a bit of a caveat in here. A 1 in 200 year storm event might happen twice in 1 year. It might happen 1 year after the next year. It's just a statistical method of assessing what the level of the storm is. One thing that it does do though is because it's a 100-year design life, the scheme, so everything that we put out there is going to last the full 100 years. It takes account of sea level rise over that period. So a 1 in 200 year storm event in 100 years will be worse than a 1 in 200 year storm event now, because the sea level will have risen, or they assume that the sea level will have risen, so it takes account of that in it.
But that's obviously based on current annual sea level rise predictions. If the scientists sort of in 10 years' time turn around and say it's rising much quicker, then obviously that would affect the design line.
It's been hydraulically modelled, so they put it in a tank, generate some waves, and they assess how the scheme will work, and it's very accurate basically. They also do some computer modelling as well. At the end of it, it should be both accessible and aesthetically pleasing. But I think that's in the eye of the beholder, so hopefully you guys will have an opinion on that. You've now got a much wider promenade with a much shallower drop in level, so it'll be much more aesthetic and wide, big open space. We've got a sheet pile wall, which some of you may have seen, heard, or what have you over the time, which basically cuts off the rock armour which forms the main defence line from the aesthetically pretty section that's behind the sheet piles. The aesthetic part is formed out of precast steps, very similar to those that are at Cleveley's. I'm sure you've probably seen some of them. A recurved wall, which then will form the main defence, and then the promenade behind the final line of defence is a setback wall. The setback wall or rear wall is exactly the same as the one down at Cleveley's, because we still have the moulds. So the moulds have been cleaned and you'll get the same walls, so it carries it on through with various patterns on the back of them. Fishes with bubbles, and just bubbles, is that correct? The structure itself is approximately 56.9 metres wide from the wall here down to the very tall rock at the bottom. So it's a very wide structure. And all this rock that's going in front is in front of the old tow. So this is like new defence. Everything else is overlaid on existing defence behind it, so you've got a much wider structure. 13.8 metres from there up to the top of the new wall. The new wall, incidentally, will be slightly higher than the existing wall, obviously to take account of sea level rises and the arithmetic stuff. There's approximately 675,000 tonnes of material, new material going into the works. As well as the main cross section, we have to form groins. Previously they were timber groins that you used to have going out to sea, which trap the beach sand. The timber groins will be removed and we're going to replace them with rock groins. So the same rock that goes into the revetment will form the groins out to sea. The longshore drift for this section of coastline is from a south to north direction. So whereas in previous visits people have said, yeah, you used to find that on that side of the groin the sand was up to the top of the groin, and on the other side of the groin you might have had a drop of a metre, metre and a half, 2 metres in places. That's right, because all the material is basically going that way towards Fleetwood. So these groins have been designed and set out. There's 18 number of them. There's one groin, 150 metres long at Chatsworth, just north of Chatsworth in fact, and the rest, the other 17, 75 metre long groins. That design has been modelled to maximise on the beach material. Basically, having a healthy beach or a high beach level is the best form of defence. The structure is there if the beach isn't there, essentially. So this is a very critical part of the design, and touch wood, so far it's worked a treat.
Since completion, the Markham example has gone on to become a much complained about litter collecting, vermin ridden disaster. Something else it was made abundantly clear at all the meetings with Wyre Borough Council, but as ever to no avail.